dreams will come true if your mind isn't glued to the fact that life is so blue. Hi there, it's Sandy and AnaLynne, and welcome to the Sandy and Friends podcast. So today I'm interviewing the incredible Don Most. So welcome.
Sandy, thank you for having me. It's great to meet you.
Oh, it's great to meet you too. Quiet there.
Yes, you too, AnaLynne.
So we have some questions for you. And once again, I'm the one asking the questions right now.
Okay.
So I want to know, how did you get involved with acting?
With acting, okay. Well, I was 13 when I started going. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, not that far from where you live on Long Island, and I started going to a school in Manhattan on Saturdays, over the weekend. So I would take the subway in to Manhattan, and I went to the school for singing and acting and dancing, and that started when I was about 13. Because when I was 9, I knew I saw a movie called The Jolson Story. It was about Al Jolson, and he was a famous entertainer singer back in the 19 teens and 20s. He was considered the world's greatest entertainer, and he actually starred in the very first talking movie in 1927 called The Jazz Singer. Al Jolson was the star. So the movie I saw was a biopic about him, and it really had a big effect on me. I loved the music, and I loved his talent, his singing, and bought his records. And then by the time I was 13, my parents knew I wanted to, really delve into it deeper. So that's when I started going to that school in Manhattan when I was about 13. So that was the beginning.
Oh, that's really great. So you picked up both acting and singing simultaneously with that?
Yeah, I was probably even more into the singing, when I was 9, 10, 11. But then it's sort of expanded as I did some plays in school or in summer camp, and then when I went to the school, I started getting into it more, and then even more so when I was about 16, I switched into a much more serious, mainly an acting workshop, but then I was starting to really get into movies, and the acting started. I started switching my focus more towards acting, and put the singing aside for a while, knowing that I'd use it down the road and maybe I'd come back to it, which I have more recently. But it was about when I was 16, I really got focused on the acting. I saw a movie, I was watching, there were a lot of great movies that came out during that time. Dustin Hoffman and in The Graduate, and then Midnight Cowboy he did, and Paul Newman movies that I loved, The Hustler and Cool Hand Luke, and then HUD, and then I discovered around 1960, it's probably around 69. When I was 16, I saw the movie Five Easy Pieces starring Jack Nicholson, and that really had a big impact on me. And Nicholson became a big influence on me. So that's when I really got into being laser focused on acting.
Wow, that is so cool. I love that you're able to do so many different things, though. Using both your singing and acting. That's just awesome.
Yeah, I've done some musicals, which required both, on stage. I did the Broadway tour of the show Grease years ago, and several other musicals where obviously the singing and acting were combined. And hopefully maybe I'll get to do that in a movie. There's a project a friend of mine and I are developing, which would, I'd be playing a character and music would be a big part of it. So maybe I'll be able to do both in a film or TV. That would be fun.
I know that I would love to see that.
Oh, thanks, AnaLynne. I appreciate that. And I'm looking forward to that as well. So hopefully that will happen.
So who would you say is your greatest musical influence?
I guess, like I said, okay, so originally it was Jolson. Then I started discovering all the greats. I listened to a radio program at night, every night before going to bed. It was in New York, WNEW, and a radio personality named William B. Williams, and he played all the great standards, the Great American Songbook, if you will, and I loved it, especially with the jazz bent, the jazz standards. But he played all the greats like Sinatra, who became obviously an influence, and Sammy Davis Jr. I loved, and Dean Martin, and Nat King Cole was I loved Nat King Cole, and then some of the female singers like Ella Fitzgerald I loved, and Dinah Washington, and many others. But then probably Bobby Darin. I became a huge Bobby Darin fan, and saw him at the Copacabana nightclub in New York when I was 18, and he was a huge, even probably, I mean, Sinatra's right up there, but Darin probably even more so. I loved, and when I do my act, when I do my singing show, I always do several Darin songs, So I usually close the show with his Mac the Knife, which is one of my favorites.
Oh, that's really great. I gotta say, you are my greatest musical influence.
Oh, wow. I'm very pleased to hear that, and surprised in a good way. Thank you so much.
Oh, you are very welcome. So I want to know, what was your audition for Happy Days like?
Well, there were several. The first one was just a meeting with, there were 3 executive producers. Gary Marshall, who was the creator of the show and one of the exec producers, and great writer and director. And he went on to direct some big movies, like Pretty Woman and so many others, which the list goes on and on. But the other 2 exec producers were Tom Miller and Ed Milkis. And Tom Miller was originally from Milwaukee, and that's why the Happy Days they decided to set it in Milwaukee. So the first interview was just with Tom and Ed, and they just wanted to get to know me and talk to me. They had seen me on, I had done a lot of TV commercials in New York before I went out to California, where the auditions for Happy Days, the ones that I went on, they saw people in New York, but I happened to be in California at the time. And we just talked, and they just wanted to get a sense of whether they thought I might be right for one of the characters, Then they called me back, and then I had to prepare a scene. I was auditioning for the role of Potsy, and I had to, yeah. And I had to prepare a scene with Richie, the character Richie. So I prepared, I went in to Paramount Studios, and it was in a big conference room, and Gary was there, Gary Marshall, and probably about 10 other people in the room, So it's a little unnerving because there's all the 10, 12 people, and then you're sitting in a chair, and they had somebody reading with me, the casting director, somebody reading the part of Richie, and I'm playing, actually, no, they had another actor there with me playing Richie. And we did the scene, and I guess it went really well, because then they called me back for a third interview. This time I had to do a screen test. So a screen test, if you're not familiar with it, is where the actors come in, they put you in wardrobe, the correct wardrobe for the character. They shoot it almost like they're shooting a scene in a movie or a TV show, where they have the cameras, the lights, the set that you're going to be on. It looks like, I can't remember what the setting was for that. Might have been a room in the house, in the Cunningham house. I can't remember, but they had a set, and then they had another actor playing Richie who was screen testing as well. And we had to do the scene, and Gary Marshall directed the screen test. and then I had to do that, and then they wanted me to do an improvisation as well, where they give you a situation, they don't give you dialogue, and they put you with the other person, and you just improvise a scene. And then they then did an interview with me on camera. That was what I had to do that day. It was a long day, and there were a whole bunch of other actors screen testing as well for Richie and Potsy. So then they called my agent a few days later and said he didn't get the role of Potsy, but they liked his screen test so much, the executives, that they want to put you in the show and create a character for you. And there was a small role in the pilot script of a guy named Ralph Malph, and we'll give him that part, but we'll make him a regular in the show. And the part, will guarantee so many episodes in the season, that kind of thing. So I auditioned for Potsy, but then wound up getting cast as Ralph, and they made that a regular.
Glad that you did. Ralph is so funny.
Yeah, he was a funny character, a lot of fun to play, that's for sure.
So that character kind of really evolved throughout the show. So when you first got into it, what did you think that character was going to be? Obviously, it wasn't as comedic at first. That is.
Yeah, you're right. The character definitely evolved, because at the beginning, the pilot episode I was in maybe 2 scenes, and they said, well, he's a guy who's into cars, a little bit of a jock, and he's into cars. And that was basically all they told me. And then I could see from the scenes that he was in, he was a bit of a wisecracker, but he was a little bit, at the beginning, he was a little more cool. He had this great car, and he would be sharp with the put down, he would be sarcastic and funny in that kind of way. And then what happened is, as the season developed and they started putting me in more and more and getting me more involved with Richie and Potsy, so then it became, instead of him being sort of a guy they knew that was a wisecracking guy, he became more of a really a better friend and closer to them. And then it started evolving into where he was more the class comedian kind of guy, and one of the guys, as opposed to being sort of, on the periphery. I started getting more and more involved with all of stuff that Richie and Potsy were doing. Same thing with Fonzie. At the beginning, he was more of a peripheral character, and then he became, one of the stars. So there's definitely, if you watch the show in its chronological order, the way it was shot and the way it was aired, you definitely get a sense of that evolution that you alluded to, that you are observant of, for sure.
And those of you who are also 14 who haven't seen the show should watch it.
Yes. What do you watch it on? At MeTV, or which station or platform can you see it on?
I've seen everything past 7 on YouTube, and then everything before that on MeTV.
On MeTV, okay. Yeah, I think they're showing it on some other things now too, like CBS All Access, I think might have season 2 on it, and there's a few other places that I've heard are showing it too. Pluto TV, I heard, is showing it. So
I've seen there's a Happy Days channel. I was just on looking the other day. Yeah, I don't know how, but it's pretty wild.
Oh, I didn't know that. Happy Days channel.
Yeah,
I'll have to look that up. I don't know if I get it, but I'll look it up.
You should. I hope you do. So, what was the set of Happy Days like? What was everybody like that was there?
Well, it was really great casting when you think about the producers who decided on who should be cast, because we came together so well as a group and became like a family. We became very close, and we got along extremely well. Even at the beginning, everyone's feeling their way through and getting to know each other. but pretty soon we were getting along very well, and there was a great sort of chemistry that we all had, and we had a lot of respect for the work, and we respected each other professionally. I was, I felt I was very excited. Here I am working with Ron Howard, who I had been watching since, he was on the Andy Griffith Show, and I was about the same age as Ron. So since I was like 5, 6 years old, I was watching him on that, and then saw him in other things like the movie The Music Man, and later on other things. And then I'd recently seen him in American Graffiti, which came out right around late 73, right around the time we made the pilot in November, December of 73. So, and then Tom Bosley, I knew of. I'd seen him in movies, and I've heard a lot about him because he'd won the Tony on Broadway for doing the play Fiorello. And then the other people, like Marion, I wasn't as familiar with Marion, but I soon grew to see how terrific she was. And then Anson was great, and Erin Moran was great. So it was just, like I said, we had a lot of respect for the work and how professional we all were. And yet at the same time, we liked each other a lot. So we were able to really enjoy the process as well.
Oh, that's so great. Were you especially close with anyone in particular in the cast or crew?
We all got pretty close. Early on, I was pretty close with Henry because we were both from New York, and then they'd sent us out on these publicity tours to promote the show. So the first one, they sent Ron and Anson out together to different cities, and Henry and I to different cities, and then we met up. So I got to spend all this time traveling with Henry, and so we got to know each other even better, and we became, really close. And then I'd say a year in the next season, I also started getting really close with Ron because we shared a love of, besides the work, a love of movies, and we'd go to movies together and sort of critique and analyze them. And then also baseball. We were both big baseball fans. And so then I became really tight with Ron. But we were all really close. We really all were.
You seemed like it. I
think it came through, definitely, didn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it was really awesome, I gotta say.
Thank you. Thank you, AnaLynne.
So, oh no, you're such a potsy. All right, chill out there.
I've heard that somewhere.
You know what? Yeah.
Where did I hear that somewhere? I might have said it once or twice. Right.
Just a couple times. You've still got it.
I hope so. Thank you.
Even on Zoom, you still got it.
Even on Zoom, I still got it.
So you were on the Fonz and the Happy Days gang, right?
Oh, yes. Yeah, the cartoon. That was fun. That was the first experience I had doing a voice, like doing a cartoon voice or any kind of voiceover. And that was fun. It was a good experience. It introduced me to that whole medium, which was different. And then after, I don't think we did too many, maybe 2 seasons, 1 or 2 seasons. But then because of that, I think I got picked to do another cartoon called Dungeons and Dragons. And that was a really fun series. We did that for 3 seasons. And then I wound up then getting another one called Teen Wolf, which was based on the movie Teen Wolf. And I did a cartoon of that as well. So that was a good experience. They were fun. You'd probably enjoy that because with your vocal work that you're doing, I mean, it's a little different, but maybe you'd enjoy doing voices in a cartoon setting. Maybe.
That would be fun.
Yeah.
It sounds really fun. But what is that whole thing like? I mean, trying to align your voice with a character's mouth that isn't even there.
No, they do the animation after. So we do. They give us the script and they show us what's happening, like storyboards, like little pictures little drawings, cartoon drawings, like here's this scene and this is why you're scared, or or you're reacting to this character, this thing. And so you're seeing like pictures of what the story is and what the scene is. And there's a script, and then you're just reading it, in a studio in front of the mic, and the other actors are reading if they're in the same scene with you, almost like a radio play, like you're just doing the dialogue, and you trying to capture what they showed you was going on. Then they'll animate it to what we said so that it matched it. We didn't have to match the mouths of the animation. They animate it to what we said.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That sounds like a lot of fun. It does.
Yeah.
So, here, you asked someone, what is your favorite memory from the set of Happy Days?
Oh, people ask me that sometimes. It's so hard to pick one thing because there were so many. The memories, the things that I remember that stick out the most to me are, having if something really worked well, like if a scene went particularly well, and there were many of those, I remember those stand out to me. But also sometimes the conversations that we would have in between shooting, like before a scene, and we'd be backstage and talking, or especially the first 2 seasons, the show was shot what they call one camera, meaning there was no audience. It was shot like a movie is shot. So there's different sets, and you might be doing a scene. The first scene you might be shooting might be something on page 25, and the next scene you're shooting might be something on page 8. It depends, and in a different set. It's shot totally out of order and one scene at a time, like a movie. And we did Happy Days that way for the first 2 years. If you remember all the scenes when we were in cars out in the drive-in, and I'd pull up in a car and there'd be a scene. There was no audience. There was only one camera, and you'd shoot that scene from one angle, then you'd shoot it from another angle, then you'd shoot it again from over here, and until they felt like they had it, and then you move on to another scene. So there was a lot of times that while you're waiting to shoot, that had a lot of great conversations, and I remember those a lot. And also the times when we would have run-throughs. Now we're shooting later 3-camera technique, where you shoot it on. We would shoot Friday nights in front of an audience. So all week we'd be rehearsing, and then gearing up to that Friday night show, where you shoot the entire show that night with 3 cameras in different sets. And so when we would have a run through, say on the day before, and then everyone would gather around after the run through, Gary Marshall and the other writers and our director, Jerry Parrish, and all the actors, and we'd all sit around, and they'd have notes for us. And then we all be talking about, this didn't work because of this. And they'd say, we need a better joke here. And it would be this real collaborative process that I loved, that interaction where we all were working together and trying to figure out how to make it better and improve it so that it could be the very best it could be. So those sessions of the notes with all the actors and the writers and producers together are some of my favorite memories.
Oh, that's really great. That's really cool how it went from being shot out of order like that without an audience to doing the whole thing live like a play. I think that's pretty wild.
Yeah, it was a big transition. And you could see how the show had to change somewhat. It became a little bit bigger. It became a little bit more heightened because you're doing it. There's an audience and there's cameras, but there's also an audience. And so you're playing, it's somewhere in between, like you said, like a play and TV. It's like a hybrid. And if you look at the first 2 seasons, it's a little more subtle because you're shooting it like a movie and there's no audience and it's in tight, close, the cameras are in closer, and you're doing it like you're trying to, the verisimilitude of life, you're trying to make it feel real, very real, like you're really in this situation. Where the 3-camera, you kind of know you take license that it's just like you do in a theater, that you suspend your reality and put yourself into this alternate reality of people on stage, and you go with it. That's kind of like what the show became in the 3rd season on.
Yeah. So would you say that you enjoyed doing it more in that format of the first 2 seasons, or when it was live and on the stage?
That's a great question. There were things about both that I really liked. There were pros and cons to each, I guess. Not cons so much, but there were just things that I really liked about doing it in the 1 camera, like a movie, because you could really get the subtleties of certain things and make it more real. And I liked that challenge. But then there was the aspect that the energy that you get from an audience, and that sort of communal thing that happens between the actors and an audience, and that energizes it. And then sometimes really great things happened in that environment. So it's a tough one. It's tough. I really like both. Some of my people say, I have favorite episodes from the 3-camera format and favorite ones from the 1 camera, So it depends on the mood I'm in, I guess.
I guess it's really the acting and the people that make it so great, huh?
Definitely. Yes, without a doubt.
All right, so I've got one last question for you. No! I don't want this to end. AnaLynne, don't ask.
Well, we'll just do it another time again. We'll have a follow-up. Okay?
That's good. All right, good. I gotta see you again, John. I gotta. All right.
Well, we will. It's okay.
So you do so much between your singing and acting. So what is your favorite part about it all? The performance.
Oh God. I love the fact that I am doing different, all these different things, because I love aspects of each. So when I'm doing theater, a lot of actors will say that's their favorite, doing theater, because of that, the relationship you have with the audience, and that immediacy, and the sort of electricity that goes back and forth, and the fact that you're doing something all the way through with no stops, and cutting, and you're in. Once the play starts, it's up to the actors. There's no editing, there's none of that. It just goes, and it's up to the actors. So I love doing live theater, but I also love, if I have a really good part in a script that I really like, say a movie, and then I love the challenge of becoming that character, and having each scene be, sort of try to get the magic of that scene, so that, because it's going to be in there forever, and you're not going to be able to do that scene again. So trying to get it to be the best it could possibly be, and the most spontaneous and real and all of that. So I love doing that also. So it's hard. And then when I'm singing, then it's almost like a different part of my brain, and the instrument of your voice, but it stimulates something else in me, and I love, because I love hearing that music. I love hearing the band behind me, and then getting into the song with the band, and being right there with them, and singing it with an audience is very, that visceral kind of feeling is very, I get high from that. So it's tough. I'd say that's probably the most visceral of the 3 for me, but doesn't mean I don't know if I had to choose, do I like that one better? I don't know, because I love them all. It's so hard to choose, but it's probably the most visceral, I'd say.
Oh my goodness. I love how much you love doing this.
Yeah.
It's so obvious your connection with all these things. It's just awesome.
Oh, thank you so much, Sandy. I really appreciate it. I knew that we'd get along when we were talking a little bit, messaging each other, and I knew we'd get along very well. And I'm so happy to meet you, and you two are very happy to meet you. And we'll talk again. Maybe next time we could talk about other things that I've been doing, acting wise, and all that. Okay?
Absolutely. All right. I can't wait for that. Well, to all
right.
of you watching, thank you.
And thank you. Take care.
Bye. Beyond the clouds and the rain, a place where your sadness drains, where the sun peers over your sadness and your pain. There is no gravity, yet within this cavity you make your own truth. Your dreams will come true if your mind isn't glued to the fact that life is so blue. Your dreams cannot stay if you don't repay yourself for making it through. The path to making your dreams come true.